Written by Shrunken Little Ebro 12 and Exploding Clay. Edited by Alti Kron. It was Nightmare Night in Ponyville and every pony was getting into their costumes. And tonight was a special Nightmare Night, for Luna would be visiting the town once again. Somewhere in Ponyville, Pipsqueak was eager to get into his new pirate costume and collect as much candy as his bag could carry, for this Nightmare Night was going to be a very special one. His favorite princess of all time was going to visit Ponyville. "I can't wait to see her again," he gave a joyous glee. Pipsqueak put the final touches of his costume on, placing his eye patch on his right eye, grabbing his toy sword and trick bag and running out the door, and just in time to see Luna's chariot coming across the sky towards Ponyville's town square. Pip excitedly watched as Princess Luna made her grand entrance. The dark blue alicorn wore a dark hooded cloak much like the one she had worn the last Nightmare Night. All the ponies bowed before her as she turned her head, showing only her smile and her glowing eyes. Pip stared in awe. Luna took a huge leap into the air, passing the bright full moon, casting a shadow over the crowd. Luna took a dive into a nearby well. All the ponies watched as a bright lime green light shot out with steaming fog out of the light and a swarm of bats took flight. Then Princess Luna emerged from the well, making all the ponies near shout with glee and cheer. Luna smiled as she listened to the cheers of the ponies. She was happy to know that the town's ponies were giving her a much warmer reception this time around. She smiled and climbed out of the well. "Good evening, citizens of Ponyville. It is us, Princess Luna. We have come to celebrate this wonderful festival with you once again." The crowd's cheers echoed throughout the town as bulk biceps pop out the crowd, painted green and wearing ripped pair of short pants, and yelled "Ya-ya-ya." Luna smiled a bit as the real festivities began. She smirked to herself as she tried to think of how to scare the children this year. She tried to come up with a few ideas that she didn't try last year. Let's see. I already used spiders, bats, we have already done becoming Nightmare Moon. What else could I do? She brought her hoof to her bottom jaw. Luna was lost in her though, but the sound of a child broke her consideration. "Princess Luna!" Pip cheered, running up to the dark blue alicorn. Luna wasted so busy thinking that she hadn't noticed the colt coming up to her. "Oh! Hello, little Pip. Can we help you with something?" Pip stopped right in front of her. "You remembered my name. I just wanted to say hello to you." Pip was starting to become nervous. He had gotten all the courage to go up and see her, but now he didn't know what to say. She smiled at him. "Well, hello to you as well. You look quite fetching this Nightmare Night," Luna complimented. Pip smiled nervously. Thank you, Luna." Pipsqueak reached over to his side and pulled out his toy sword and showed it to Luna. "Oh my, you look like a dirty swashbuckler for sure," she smiled. Pipsqueak laughed. He put his sword back into its plastic sheath. Princess, could I ask you something?" Luna smiled and nodded. "Of course you can. What is it?" "Could go with my friends to get candy tonight?" Pipsqueak asked. She smiled a bit and nodded. "I suppose I should make sure you're all getting enough candy for the offering. I'd hate for Nightmare Moon to gobble you up." Luna winked. Yeah, we better get a lot of candy." Pipsqueak joked. She smiled and walked with him. As she thought about this, however, she thought of a good way to scare them this year. Pipsqueak was so giddy he just couldn't believe he was spending Nightmare Night with Princess Luna herself. This was his second Nightmare Night and it was already the best. Pip and Luna walked up to Twilight's library and knocked on the door. The purple alicorn opened the door wearing her Star Swirl the bearded costume. "Nightmare Night, what a fright! Give us something good to bite." Both Pip and Luna cheered. Luna smiled as she recited the chant as well. She chuckled from the fact that Twilight was wearing the same costume she had last year. "Princess Luna?" Twilight gave a confused look. "Hello Twilight, having wonderful Nightmare Night?" Twilight was almost speechless, but she gave smiles seeing her with the little colt. "Oh yes, I'm having a wonderful night." She smiled, grabbing a hoof full of candy in a big bowl, putting it into Pipsqueak's bag. "Thank you, Princess Twilight." Twilight patted the little pirate colt on the head, then reached into her bowl and turned to Luna. "Oh right." Luna's horn glowed, and then appeared a bag with pumpkins painted on it appeared. Twilight dropped the candy into her bag. "Thank you, Twilight, have a good night." Luna and Pip walked off to find more candy. "Wow, we sure got a lot of candy." Pipsqueak smiled and gave a slight giggle. "Good thing she gave us a lot of candy, wouldn't want you to gobble me up tonight." Pip laughed. Luna shared in the little colt's laugh. "No, we wouldn't." Luna patted Pip on the head, ruffling his shaggy brown mane. Luna, of course, wasn't entirely telling the truth. She would very much like to gobble up the little colt. And somehow, she had a slight feeling that might be mutual. Luna was almost lost in her train of thought when she felt Pip pulling on her mane. Princess Luna, we're getting close to the next house." Luna snapped back to reality, looking down at the small colt. "Oh right, sorry Pip." Princess Luna and Pipsqueak walked to the next house. After an hour of candy collecting, Luna decided it would be a good idea to go and enjoy the festival. She smiled down at little Pip. "I'm going to check out the rest of the festival, okay? Enjoy the candy." "Okay, Princess." He puts his bag down, then gives Luna a hug on her front left leg. "Thanks for going with me." She smiled and nuzzled the little colt before wandering off to go see the rest of the festival. Princess Luna walked into a crowd of ponies all in costume. She quietly admired by a few costumes, passing by some ponies dressed as superheroes. Luna stopped to eat a few pieces of the candy she had collected at a picnic table. She had a bored expression. I still haven't come up with anything to scare the children yet this year." She propped her hoof up under her jaw and levitated a piece of butterscotch-flavored hard candy into her mouth. She swished it around in her mouth, licking its flavor. Luna sighed as she sucked on the butterscotch, feeling it melt within her mouth as the flavor washed over her tongue. Luna worked the last bits of the butterscotch to the back of her throat, and then an idea came to her. She gulped the butterscotch down. She stood up. Her ears propped up, and she smiled as she looked around for the children, gauging how much candy they had gathered. Princess Luna found the children along with Pipsqueak and even the cutie mark crusaders at the statue of herself as Nightmare Moon, having left a pile of candy. Luna approached the children, making them all gasp. "Nay children, do not fear us, yet. We have special task for this nightmare night." The children were all slightly confused, wondering what this task was. "The task is a game, you will all go and hide and we shall catch you. You may wish to run if you wish, but when we catch you the game is over." The colts and fillies' voices raised in excitement. "Oh boy, I love games." Button Mash said out loud, who was dressed in green and had toy sword and shield. Luna smiled. She spotted Pipsqueak talking with Apple Bloom and her friends. "You should go and find places to hide in the forest, I'll give you all time to go and hide," she said, making all the fillies and colts go in groups and vanishing into the forest. Luna smiled to herself as she counted out loud, thinking of just how she would end the game for them. Pipsqueak, along with Sweetie Belle, Scootaloo, and Apple Bloom, found an old huge hollow tree for them to hide inside of. "Can you see her?" Apple Bloom whispered. Pip peeked out from the one of the small holes. He looked up in the night sky, not spotting her. He brought his attention to the full moon. He saw a black figure fly past it. Pip yipped, ducking away from the hole so he wouldn't be spotted. The foals stayed silent, the only sound that they made was their slow breathing. A loud sound of a branch cracking made the fillies and colt jump. They could hear the sound of movement surrounding them. They peered out of the entrances, they only saw the forest. Then suddenly, a bush moved. The foals tensed, all of them having a cold sweat. Out from the bushes came snips and snails. The foals sighed in relief. What we're supposed to do again?